Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, and I'm pleased to welcome Sean Glaze to the show today. Sean is an author and keynote speaker who helps leaders build and sustain more positive and profitable workplace cultures. His engaging programs improve communication and trust so your people can have more success working together. As a successful coach and educator for over 20 years, Sean gained valuable insights into developing winning teams and founded Great Results Team Building to share those lessons with smart leaders and organizations. Sean's conference keynotes and interactive team building events equip managers to become effective leaders and transform employees into winning teammates. And his 4 books, The Unexpected Leader, Rapid Teamwork, The 10 Commandments of Winning Teammates, and Staying Coachable, are entertaining parables with powerful takeaways for team growth and leadership. Now, here's Sean to tell us how your team can achieve great results. Sean, welcome to Business Notes, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Diane, I am so excited to be able to share and have a conversation about staying coachable.
Yes, absolutely. You know, Sean, so much happens with communication, both good and bad. But what are the 5 most dangerous words a teammate could say?
Having worked with groups, and I know you do so much coaching with your people, and to work with team leaders and organizations, one of the things I've found in the events and conversations that I've had is that change becomes difficult because internally, or even sometimes externally, you'll hear this 5-word phrase that absolutely wrecks that immediate opportunity for improvement. And those 5 words that I think are the most dangerous to hear yourself say or a teammate to say, or that's just how I am. And that's just how I am ends up sometimes being an excuse for really bad interactions and teammate behavior, but it absolutely sometimes builds a wall between someone and their own improvement.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing for HR people and managers to know too, because people do need to change and we need to change ourselves. And that sometimes is the most difficult.
I saw such a great cartoon just a couple of days ago, and it's a caterpillar sitting down for coffee with a butterfly. The caterpillar says, "Oh, you've changed." Butterfly says, "Yeah, we're supposed to." And I think that that's something that speaks directly to obviously, the book and its content, but so many people today are going through that shift or pivot, and I'm going to get in trouble for using the word that's way too overused here recently. But the idea of looking at your present circumstance and what do I want and what do I need to do to be better, to give myself better opportunities or to grow my organization or to improve my team results. Those are questions that, again, we don't want to say that's just how I am.
Right, I agree. But what does it mean to stay coachable?
Staying coachable, and this is obviously from my background as a high school basketball coach and now working with teams, much like I worked with my own team. What I found is regardless of industry, whether it's healthcare or education or construction or you name it, those organizations have the same issues with needing to improve themselves as leaders or their people as teammates. And I think that staying coachable means the same thing in corporate situations that it did in my coaching situation with high school basketball. Staying coachable includes 2 elements. The first is you want to be better. Now, when I'm presenting this on stage, Diane, you raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand if you want to be better. And every hand in the audience goes up. The second part of being coachable is not just want to be better, but are you willing to change? Now, when you ask that question, all right, how many of you are willing to change? Well, you get fewer hands. And I think that's where some of the challenge lies.
So why do leaders struggle to get their people to change?
I think leaders struggle to get their people to change for the same reason that they look in the mirror and sometimes struggle individually to change. We are taping this right around Valentine's Day. And one of the interesting stats that I know that people are bombarded with is about 6 weeks out from the new year, about 80% of those New Year's resolutions have already kind of fallen to the wayside, and we've not kind of stuck with or been consistent with whatever change we promised ourselves. And that's almost consistent with the organizational change initiatives or Harvard Business Review, and authors will quote that around 70% of change initiatives fail at the corporate level. And I think that it's all for the same reason that change and progress can be absolutely beneficial and positive, but sometimes we get complacent. And I think complacency is really that one barrier that keeps people from seeing the benefits of what's available if they do take those steps to improve.
That's a great lead into my next question. Because you say complaining is a symptom of complacency, but what does that mean?
Well, I think that wishing and hoping and complaining are oftentimes what we do, what our teammates do, when they're not willing to change and to put in the effort to be a little bit different and better. And so, if you've got a complainer on your team, or if you look in the mirror and you remember moments in the past few days where you've complained a lot more than you know you should have, that complaining is sometimes a symptom of somebody who is complacent and resisting the change that is inevitable in terms of making them better, giving them an opportunity to have increased and improved results.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you the $64,000 question, so I want everybody to listen. Okay,
wait, buckle up.
What is the shift that creates buy-in for people to change?
Well, this is probably the most valuable thing I learned when I was coaching basketball. And there are a number of things. And again, the books that I've written and the speeches that I give and the coaching that I do is all based upon elements of that same coaching career, building a program and creating a culture and helping a team achieve. Because again, team success is not always about talent. Sometimes that toxic environment can sabotage the talent and the strategy that you want to achieve. What I realized was an important shift for me as an individual coach and for leaders across industries is to move from where I had been a command and control guy. And this is the way we're going to do it. And this is what you need to do. And providing consequences for when that didn't occur. And I think that I probably broke some of the connections that I should have been strengthening because I was so involved as a disciplined leader that I didn't do the job of staying curious and connecting with my people. And I think that curiosity and desire to connect with people is absolutely what separates those command and control leaders who sometimes end up creating a whole lot more issues with when people resist that change than being curious and creating connections and asking questions. And I think demanding and commanding is very, very different than staying curious and asking questions that allow people to come to the answers themselves.
Yeah, that style has led to a lot of divorces in marriages and a lot of divorces in the workplaces. So I know what you mean. So you say that there are 4 questions that you ask. So what is the first of the 4 questions?
Well, I think the first of the 4 questions is probably the most difficult because it becomes the foundation, or it becomes actually the desired peak of the mountain that you're going to want to climb. And it's one that I don't think that people sometimes get out of the fog they're surrounded by to really clear that fog away and get clear about what it is that they want. And I think that there are obviously 4 steps to being coachable, and those 4 questions and how you answer those 4 questions are going to determine whether you become coachable and committed to the change that's going to give you a chance to be more successful, or if you're going to be complacent and stay stuck where you are. And I think that the very first question that any organization, that any leader or teammate needs to ask themselves are specifically, what do you want? What is that thing that you want to achieve? What's the goal that you are compelled to work together to accomplish? That first thing is, what are you hungry for? What is the thing that you specifically want to achieve? What's that mountain that you want to climb? Because if you don't identify the goal, if you don't have that purpose or mission clearly defined, then a lot of times we're just kind of playing in the sand without having any real purpose for the efforts we're giving.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, you say that the sequence in which these questions are asked is important. Well, why is that?
Because as we go from question 1, which is, what specifically do you want? Where do you want to be? What do you want to accomplish? That's important because it sets for us the destination that we want to eventually achieve and get to, the results we want to enjoy. But the second question is, I think, just as important. But again, the process is important because the second question, Diane, would be, where are you now?
Mm.
Now, it's very important to identify the goal and what I want to accomplish and what I want to have and where I want to be. But I think it's really difficult sometimes to look at ourselves in the mirror and be clear about what are our present numbers? Where am I really right now? Because sometimes we'll excuse our numbers, and sometimes we'll make explanations and come up with reasons that excuse present performance. And when we really are willing to look clearly at ourselves and answer that question, where are you now? What is your current skill level? What is your current level of understanding or awareness or certification or whatever that might be? Those first two questions create something really powerful, because if you identify where you want to be and then you're really clear about where you are now, there's a clear gap that people begin to notice and become aware of. And if you don't answer those questions clearly, then you're comfortable being complacent because you've not identified that lack of connection between where you want to be and where you are. But it's really important, and it was important for me as a coach. I think it's important for leaders in any team or organization to recognize that individually and as a team, you first got to identify where you want that team to be and the results that you want. And then you need to be really intentional about clarifying and looking in a clear mirror to identify what are our numbers now and where are we. And once that gap is established, once you see that there is a difference between those two, that opens the door for the third question.
And that is?
I thought you'd never ask. I think the third question is really where you separate the doers from those complainers, because sometimes complainers complain because they see the gap, but they're complacent. They're not willing to fill that gap or to change or move themselves. And I think that third question has everything to do with humility. If the first question is about hunger and the second question is about honesty, the third question is about humility. And that is, what weakness do you need to admit? What do you need to acknowledge that you don't presently have based upon your experience and skills and information that someone else could actually pour into you? And this is where I think as a young leader, this is where I dropped the ball, because I thought I was humble. I thought I was hungry. I thought that I was honest. And that confidence I thought I had was really arrogance. See, confidence is thinking you can help. Arrogance is thinking you don't need help. In that first year or so that I was a coach, I wasn't willing to take the advice of people who were more experienced and more knowledgeable and more successful at that time than me, because I was going to change the world. I had all the answers. And one of the things I share in the book, Staying Coachable, is you can't pour into a cup that's already full of assumptions and ego. And I think that part of that third question, that humility question, what weakness do you need to admit? What do you need to find in terms of a mentor who can actually fill your cup with information that's going to help you to achieve more? I think that's really powerful, because humility, I think, is the difference between that complacency and complaining to actually somebody who becomes committed to change and grow.
I can't wait to hear the fourth question.
Well, you're going to have to read the book. Hey, it was a great conversation. Thanks so much, Diane.
You bad boy.
And I think that again, as you mentioned, that progression is important, because once you identify what's important, where you want to be, and then you clarify where you are, that creates the gap where people are uncomfortable, because people sometimes aren't coachable. People aren't willing to change because they want to get better their way. And that's what I experienced as a coach is, if I'm teaching somebody how to make a free throw, or how we're going to defend, or what we're going to do in terms of running this play or this inbound set or whatever that might be, if they want to do something their way, we're not going to get better as a team. It's only when they get better our way, or when they actually seek the advice and the information and the wisdom of people who have already been successful climbing the mountain they want to climb, that they actually open themselves up to accepting and being appreciative of and applying that advice. People get annoyed by advice if they don't think that they need it. People are appreciative and applying advice when they are humble enough to recognize and be aware of what those weaknesses are that they need to improve. And so after you've identified those weaknesses, and after you've been humble enough to seek out a mentor and somebody that could actually help to pour into your cup, That fourth question, very simply, is now what are you going to do differently? What are those habits that you're going to change? And that becomes obviously an ongoing cycle where you need to commit to those habits, because habits are an external indication of internal commitments. And the habits that you choose, not just the things that you end up letting go of, but the things that you decide to do consistently differently, that's going to be the difference in your results. Because it's great to know that there is a gap. It's great to know where you're at. It's great to acknowledge that you're humble, but nothing's going to improve until you change the behaviors and the actions that you undertake daily. And so that idea of habits and what are you going to do consistently differently is the last question.
This is the first time I ever realized how brilliant you are, Sean, after all these years.
I do a really good job of fooling people. It takes a long time to finally know, and I'm still trying to convince my wife, Diane.
Well, forget that. So, Sean, where can people find you? Where can they get your books? And, what is your best audience?
Well, I appreciate you asking. Obviously, they can find the book on Amazon. My website is Great Results Team Building. You can find me on Google, find me on LinkedIn at Sean Glaze. But I work with specifically healthcare and education organizations, but I've worked with, again, construction and banking and so many industries, because the issues that I help leaders deal with are everything having to do with workplace culture. I think sometimes leaders get focused upon strategy, but strategy is always going to be implemented based upon the quality of your culture. And culture will either support or sabotage the strategy that a lot of times people invest more time into. And so investing time in building culture is, I think, one of the things that's going to come out of this last couple of years of upheaval and the Great Resignation, and a lot of the movement that you see in the job area is people beginning to realize that culture is important, that connections are important, that sense of environment they're working in is really valuable. And for leaders to recognize that and to build and sustain a more positive and profitable culture ends up being a significant move towards their team's success.
Great advice. Sean, thank you so much. You have really laid the groundwork for leadership to make sure that their managers understand coaching and how to coach and how to build teams doing it that way. So I appreciate your advice today, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for allowing me to share a little bit about the book, Staying Coachable. Again, available not just in paperback now, got a hard copy available just the other day. So would love for managers to be able to pick up a copy to help to coach and improve not just their relationships, but the results their teams are getting. Enjoyed it very much, Diane.
Super. Thanks, Sean. Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Sean Glaze, the founder of Great Results Team Building, author and keynote speaker. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.